Feedback attack. Let's go. This is the Yepcast, where we're building a tribe of creators, movers, and shakers,
and inspiring young entrepreneurs to learn, think, and support one another.
Hey everyone, this is the Yepcast. We welcome you back to episode number 9. My name is James Nuveen.
And my name is Madeline Martini. Welcome back, everyone.
This is episode 9 of the Yepcast. We are talking about giving and receiving feedback and best practices for both.
Such an important topic, guys. This is something that we've incorporated a lot in our strategy at Yep and in our past internships and work experiences. So we hope you enjoy. Without further ado, let's take it to In the News. Elon Musk, a person we all know and love. He's been in the news a lot recently, creating headlines around being sued for the SEC because he tweeted out that he was thinking about going private. That's, I'm pretty sure, verbatim his tweet. And then he also, Twitter gets him in a lot of trouble. He also got in trouble.
I think he said he was going to privatize Tesla at $420 a share. So, yeah.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, you did give an exact number, which, if you're familiar with federal law and regulation, I'm not really, but I know from reading on Elon, that's definitely illegal in the SEC's eyes. Then also on Twitter, he needs to stay off Twitter. A lot of our people are getting in trouble there. But anyways, he got in trouble is actually getting sued by the man who rescued the kids from Thailand, from the cave. And he called him a pedophile on Twitter. So he's getting a lot of lashback from that. He did. And then he's actually getting sued by the guy who was the diver. So
for defamation.
Yeah. So he's in a lot of trouble right now, a lot of heat.
I really don't think he cares, though. I think he's one of those guys that if he's creating and innovating and changing the world, I think that's the only thing that matters to him. And everything else is pretty much noise and distraction. Because Madeline, he's one of those guys that just is bullish on the future and creating the next wave of technology and abundance for our future.
Yeah, exactly. I think, it doesn't really affect him. I think his shareholders are probably not very happy. And he's probably a little disappointed. I mean, he did get knocked down off of chairman of his own company, which sucks. And that happens with a lot of the big guys. I know I was talking with someone yesterday, and Papa John's, that happened to him. He got demoted from his own board. It also happened with, who was the other company we were talking about? I don't remember, but Steve Jobs, of course. That's a classic example that you started something and then no longer you have control over it, which I cannot even imagine that.
Can't imagine.
That's your baby and then it's gone from you. But I mean, that's what happens when you go public. So, and when you're a little careless with Twitter. So yeah, just a reminder, we still love Elon. He's going through a tough time. He made some mistakes, but
stay strong, Elon. We believe in you.
Strong.
We believe in your strengths and willingness to change the future. It's all on you, buddy. On to my news for the week, I have an article from Forbes magazine where they are detailing the top 10 rising cities for startups. And much to our surprise, we actually have 4 Midwest cities in the top 10 rising cities for startups.
Woohoo!
And that is something Madeline and I are very excited about because we are very passionate about entrepreneurship in the Midwest and bringing innovation from the coast into the heartland. And in this list, actually, we have number 1 is in the Midwest, in our home state of Ohio, or at least where we go to school. Number 1 is Columbus. Number 2 is St. Louis, another Midwest city. Number 6, our home city, Cincinnati.
Woot woot.
Yeah, that is really exciting for the whole Startup Cincy movement, which they are celebrating actually in a few weeks during Startup Cincy Week and a big Techstars celebration where the whole startup community gets together and just celebrates the entrepreneurial ecosystem in the city. That's very exciting for the city and for the state of Ohio. And then finally at number 9, we have Minneapolis-St. Paul as the number 9 rising city for startups. So this is very exciting for the Midwest, as well as the other cities who are named in this article. We see a lot of growth in these other cities, other than San Francisco, other than Silicon Valley, New York, Boston. a lot of people are innovating in places that you're not super well known of. Right, Madeline?
Yes, exactly. And I was kind of reflecting on this the other day. Like the West is always like, Silicon Valley, Denver, LA, they're always like kind of the trendsetters in business and fashion and food, really in everything. And it's so weird to me that we follow what a region does, the rest of the country. So I'm really happy that Forbes released this article, and it's very exciting to be a part of the Midwest right now. And I mean, there's a lot happening here. There's brilliant people, brilliant talent. I think amazing things are possible for us. So it's a very...
Madeline, you said that the Midwest is following San Francisco, and I don't think that's necessarily true, actually. I think the Midwest is blazing their own path in their own way. For example, like you see a lot of ag tech. That's AG, ag tech, in the Midwest, and you don't see that as much in Silicon Valley because they're not focused on the rest of America. They're focused on global change. So not necessarily thinking about the flyover states or the people who are living in Alabama and Indiana and North Dakota and Kentucky. So I think it's really cool to see innovation in these places where people are not taken advantage of, but are just kind of forgotten sometimes. So I think that's really cool and a trend for the future, which I fully 100% believe in.
It's definitely exciting. I like that. I think I just sent a video to Jimmy the other day of this man from Barstool that they're highlighting Kentucky and like some of the more stereotypical characteristics. So it's exciting to see that our region of the country, like it's not a stereotype. There's really brilliant people here. And I do hate that a lot of times we just get like kind of like kicked to the side because of some stereotypes, which is so dumb. So it's exciting. It's a great time to be in the Midwest.
Yeah.
It always has been.
Go Midwest, baby. Let's go.
Yeah.
All right, now to our take. Just to start this off, Madeline, I want to hear your connotation of the word feedback. What do you think of when you hear the word feedback?
When I think of feedback, I think of information. It's all the reactions and facts around a product or your personal performance. And feedback in general, it sounds like a corporate word. For the longest time, I always thought, it's like tied to your performance review and we're giving you feedback, or it's tied to a survey. And that's really not, disgusting. It's not it at all. Feedback is so valuable. And it's something that we've incorporated here into YEP and in every really aspect of our life. Why is giving feedback important?
To me, it helps me learn. It helps me learn about my negative sides, my weaknesses. If I were to go into an interview and with the standard questions that corporations always ask you, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? I would have no weaknesses to say if I didn't get feedback from my peers, my superiors, and the executives that I've worked with in my life. Because I'm not the kind of person who would stop and think about what I'm doing. I mean, I'm self-aware, but I don't think I would stop and try to like knock myself down and try to build myself up from there. You know what I mean? When all these people give me this information that I'm really bad at something or I can improve on something, I can take that back and constructively learn about it in order to improve that trait. Especially if it's something that's like not personal to me. Like it's not like I've been doing it for 20 years. It's just something that I can change easily. That's like the most constructive feedback that I can receive.
Exactly. So I think it really makes us stronger in our personal and our professional life. It makes for better relationships and more collaboration. So feedback's so essential to thrive on, and you can improve if you don't know. So you just talked about self-awareness, and sometimes like we don't see the things that we do every day. They're little things. They're things we just don't, it's not something that's on the top of our mind. So we don't know what to improve. Feedback, also something I want to address, is so awkward. Giving it, taking it, it's just always an awkward experience. So we have a lot of tips coming up at the end of the episode of how you can make it less uncomfortable and more natural for you.
let's first dive into giving feedback. And I want to revert back to what you just said, Madeline, about giving feedback and receiving it. I don't think it's awkward at all. When you build up a relationship with whoever you're talking to, it should not feel awkward that you're telling them that something bothers you or that something they do bothers your customers or people around you. That should not be an uncomfortable situation. It really should not at all, because they should.
It shouldn't.
They should want to improve.
I agree with you. It should not be an awkward conversation, but it is. A lot of times your coworkers become your friends. Like, you were my friend as well, and so I'm not going to be like, that was dumb of you to do in that meeting, like, or something like that. It's hard to do that when you're giving feedback to people who you really care about, because you're saying negative things most of the time. You're trying to make them better. It's coming from a place of love and like care for the person and self, that you want them to improve themselves. But overall, like, I don't know, and we have probably there's probably people out there who identify with both of us. For you, you're more comfortable, and for me, I'm kind of uncomfortable giving feedback. So that's a good perspective for us to have different experiences in that.
And also, I think it boils down to, I'm really not afraid to offend. So when I'm talking to people, I really don't care what they think of me when I'm telling them something, even if it's offensive to them in some way, or insulting to them, because I really want to help them improve. And I think you approach people with the sense that you really care about their feelings and you don't want to hurt them. Well,
exactly.
I mean, obviously that's two sides of the spectrum, and we're not on the extremes. We're obviously a little bit closer to the middle.
Yes.
But to illustrate my point, that's what I'm saying. You do care a lot about people's feelings, and that's a great trait to have. But when you're giving feedback, I think it's really constructive to be honest and direct and blunt.
I'm definitely more of a feelings person when it comes to this. And I do recognize that feedback is something that you do have to be kind of more upfront about for people to really get the message. So I think there's really 3 types of feedback: constructive, destructive, and reinforcement. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of different ways and methods people say to give feedback. And one way that people always use is the sandwich method. I don't know if you're familiar with the sandwich method, but basically it means that you're starting with something positive the person did. So let's say this person's an analyst at your company and you said, wow, you did an amazing job analyzing Google Analytics for our company.
Can I guess where this is going?
Yeah.
It's going to be a positive, negative, positive.
Yes, exactly. So that's a sandwich. So then you would say like, but, and that's how it always negates whatever you've just said. So then you would be like, but you missed out on, we didn't know our clicks per campaign or something like that. And then you say, but I can't wait to see your next project. Great work again. And for that, it's like kind of a fake. It comes off very fake. And most people can recognize exactly what you're doing. It's a popular technique. And once now you know what it's called, a sandwich, you'll notice it day in and day out of your life. So I would say the best way to be is constructive, be upfront with it. Even though that's something I struggle with and James is a little bit better about, I think it's super important.
You know, Madeline, this kind of relates to an earlier episode on the Yepcast that we had where we talked about a method called the improv method in collaboration, where you take someone's feedback or you take their idea and you say, yes, and. That's in exact contradiction of what the sandwich method is. So that is a little bit like, yeah, but... So you're leading into a negative thought instead of building on top of that positive thought that you first had. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I know exactly what you're saying. That that's a much more constructive way to do it, which it's so important to be constructive in this because people will not learn. If you're like all nicey nice, you're throwing rainbows and cupcakes, that people will not take you seriously and people are not going to improve. It's something I personally struggle with. It's scary because, yeah, you're going to hurt people, but really, if you really care about them, you can get over it and you can make them better. It's something that it's taken me years to learn.
And if they really care to improve, they won't have their feelings hurt.
Yeah. In which most people do care about that. So hopefully that they're like in tune and they care enough about their self and their professional life that they want to improve. So otherwise, what are we doing, right?
Mm-hmm. Stop hanging out with those kind of people.
Yeah, definitely.
When brainstorming for this episode, I kind of thought about steps that you can take when you're giving people feedback that makes it really helpful. And I kind of broke it down into 2 steps, and they're kind of like 2 camps more than steps. So first, I would always provide people with the facts, what they did at what time in that podcast, or at that time in the video, or something like that, so that they have evidence to go look back and to learn about what they did wrong or what they did right. And then second, give the emotional appeal. So from your audience's perspective, or from your group's perspective, or whatever this project may be, give the emotional appeal. As in, what would your audience member feel like? What does that mistake that you are making make your audience feel like? Because that's what really matters. Because the reason you're putting out a podcast is because you want people to feel valued, or you want them to create value, or you want them to make their dreams come true. And if they're not feeling that from you because you're making a mistake in your tone or your mood, then you're missing out on a ton of value that you could be delivering, but you're not.
I don't think you can come from a place of emotion, though. Yes, you should keep in mind people's emotions, but I don't think you should come from a place where you're upset or mad about what the person just did or how somebody just was in a meeting or anything like that. You have to first get zen. So I recently attended Product Camp, and I heard this amazing session from Jack Schroeder from Spatial, and he has this little method that I think I kind of want us to try out today, James, in the podcast.
Sure.
So he first starts with getting zen.
Ooh.
And then second, you have to prompt it. You can't just be like, I wouldn't come up to James and be like, hey, you're an arrogant person. Thanks for acting like that. Instead, I would say, hey, can I give you some feedback? And second off, anything we say in this episode is not true about the other person. We're role playing, just so people know. But anyways, I would prompt it and say like, hey, can we have a feedback session? I'm looking for ways to improve myself, and I'd love to offer tips to you as well. So by saying that, you're approaching it with like a little bit more level-headed. You're zen. Now you're prompting it.
It's like a helpful perspective.
Exactly. It's not like I'm attacking you,
Sure.
which feedback can sometimes come on as an attack, I think.
Yep.
So these are ways to kind of avoid that and avoid confrontation. And then next, criticize behavior, not people. So James talked about this. It's not you. It's kind of how you acted in a situation. So if somebody was in a meeting yesterday, instead of saying like, hey, you're an arrogant person, you would say, hey, you were kind of arrogant in that meeting. You didn't think of things from all sides of the situation. And finally, never speak in absolutes. So you would never say you are an arrogant person. You would say you're sometimes an arrogant person, or sometimes in that meeting you were a little bit arrogant, because otherwise it blankets them and then they kind of freeze up and think, oh, I can't change this. This is who I am, which is never true in feedback. You can always change that kind of stuff. So I really love Jack's method and
Madeline,
approach
on
to
that
this.
point, yes, awesome tips all around. But on that point that you just mentioned, I think sometimes there are traits about people that are negative, and that you should tell them that, because then they have the choice whether to change it or not. They have the decision whether to change themselves or not. Yes, those traits may be like really, really deep inside their heart and soul, but we always have the choice whether to change our like really deepest traits or not. We really do when you think about it. It might take a long time. It might take a lot of research. But if there's a negative trait inside of you and you're conscious of it, and you're aware of it, then I think there's definitely a chance for changing, especially if you want to change.
That's true. There are sometimes things about a person that's how how they always are. So maybe they weren't just arrogant in that one meeting, they're arrogant in every meeting in day in and day out of life. And that's something that can be extremely frustrating to work with. So yeah, I agree with you there. Definitely sometimes it's going to take the person time. It can take people years.
Mm-hmm.
It can take people decades. Honestly, there's some people who, and if you don't get feedback, you'll never know to change that about yourself.
Receiving feedback is just as important as giving it. So this is when you have the opportunity to learn from these bad traits that you have, these bad actions and bad behaviors that you have, because people are pointing them out and you have the opportunity to change them. But I think it almost always starts with you having to ask for that feedback. So go to your superior, go to your peers, go to your executives team, and literally ask them, how can I improve my performance? How can I improve my leadership skills? Whatever it may be. But you have to go out of your way to ask, because a lot of the time people will not give you the feedback that you're looking for.
If you ask that, that's such an impressive question.
It is.
Like, to say, how can I improve? Literally any executive would die if they hear that. Any person, I think, would be like, oh my God, this person really cares. It shows you care. And yes, it's a little bit nerve-wracking maybe to ask for that. For me, it's not. And I think that's something, if you are nervous to say, like, how can I improve? Maybe you're nervous about what the result might be, which is even more reason to ask. Going off that, James, I want to ask you a question. What is the best feedback you've ever received?
Ooh. I don't know if I can pinpoint a specific statement that I've received. But I can definitely pinpoint a certain time. So when I worked at the company that you're currently working at, I had countless opportunities to go to my group, including another one of our friends named Maddie, who was probably the superior in our group. She was the director of our group. But I had the opportunity to go straight to her because our team was so small. So because we were on small teams and very, because I was on such a small team and a very compartmentalized team, I had the opportunity to go to these people constantly for feedback, so I could improve next time we met, next time we had a big project. But the most important feedback that I received at that company was when I finally left. After 10 months, I left the company, and I approached the CEO, who I had mad respect for, who I still have mad respect for.
He's amazing, yes.
Yeah, he is amazing. And the way he interacts with people is so distinct and so unique in a good way that it's kind of mind-blowing. So, first of all, sitting down with the CEO of a company is kind of daunting. Madeline, I've heard you say that you're still sometimes a little bit nervous talking to him, even though you've been at this company for about 3 years. And that's crazy, just because of his... It's not that he doesn't make you feel uncomfortable. He would never do that. He aims to do the opposite. And we all feel very comfortable in the office. That's why we have such good culture. Oh, God, I'm going off on a tangent. And at the end of this internship, this 10-month internship, I had the opportunity to sit down with him for about 30 minutes. And I got so honest with him, and he got so honest with me, that it was so, so valuable, the information that he told me. Because it was coming from his heart. He knew me at that point. After 10 months with the company on a small team, there's no chance anybody would not know me. So I was lucky to get that opportunity to speak candidly with him and for him to speak candidly with me. And I got to ask him what I can do moving forward to be a better employee or a better founder or a better entrepreneur. And that's some of the most valuable information I've ever taken in my life.
So did you set up this appointment, or how did you kind of go about this? I actually never knew you did this.
It was very casual. We were supposed to
Okay.
go out for lunch. We didn't end up doing that just because we were both so busy towards the end of my internship. So we just went out in the hallway. He sat down right across from me, And he sat there silently until I said something and asked for the feedback, because he knows how valuable it is for us to ask for feedback. He knows how valuable it is for us to learn to do that.
I don't think this is something that everyone would think to do in that time. I think a lot of times if you're meeting with the CEO of your company, you would phrase it more like, oh my God, I'm so grateful for this, which obviously you were incredibly grateful, but you're a person who's really focused on learning. Mm-hmm. So I think in these settings, you might not always realize the opportunity you have, but ask. And even when you turn in a paper, if a teacher gives you like an 85 and you're like, I thought that was like my best work, or even if you didn't, ask why you got that. A lot of times they'll leave comments like, this is just a small way, but you can improve so much because you don't know what you did wrong otherwise, and you'll never get to that A. And in life, there's no grades, so feedback becomes even more important.
The ideal time to get the best feedback is when you have someone across the table who has a different perspective on an issue than you.
Okay, that's a hard thing though. You just said that you met with a CEO. So setting down with someone with that level of perspective, or even a different perspective, sounds like a daunting task, maybe to you out there. Honestly, when James said that he just sat down and asked the CEO of my company I currently work for what he thinks of him, that's very daunting. That's scary. Not everyone has the chance to sit down with the CEO of their company. Even that kind of scares me, to sit down and say, hey, how can I improve? How could I have done better here? Because it's sometimes scary because it's retroactive. You're looking into the past like, I could have done better in this. And you might be thinking to yourself, oh my God, I failed because they said that I didn't do this right or didn't do this right. And that's not it at all. They're setting you up for success in the future. They're making you better. They're making you stronger. And surrounding yourself with people with different perspectives, whether that's their experience level. So our CEO obviously has a little more experience than James. And then some people, it can be like they're a different major, or they're maybe an introvert and you're an extrovert. And that can have such a great influence on how you behave. So surround yourself with people who are different than you. And this might seem so dumb, but I would ask your friends for feedback. Like, I would feel comfortable. Obviously, James is my friend and he's my business partner, and we build feedback into our daily discussions. And then even once a week, we have a session where we just give feedback. Every Thursday, we give feedback to each other, which is so valuable to kind of build ahead that session. We know, like, throughout the week, you can make notes like, oh, I think he could have done this better. I could have done this better. You start to be so much more aware of it. So I think that's crucial. Ask your friends. It might seem dumb. They might be like, what the heck? But you're all improving each other, and that's amazing. This week, I challenged you to ask someone in your life for feedback, whether it's your mom, your best friend, or your boss. Say, hey, what can I do better? And one better, schedule it into your weekly routine, just like James and I have done with Get. I think it's so crucial, and this is the only way you can improve in life. So yes, it might seem dumb, but you might be starting something bigger. It's definitely something bigger for yourself, and maybe that person, it will have a chain reaction, and they'll go ask someone else for feedback. So get out there and ask someone.
Thanks for tuning into the Epcast, guys. This has been episode number 9, all about feedback, giving and receiving it. We'll see you next week on the Epcast. Peace.